get to suffer through the same sweater again.
Okay, I wore Christmas barfed on me.
Do we want that on camera? Christmas barfed on you?
I was gonna wear it in. I told everybody I'd wear it in sometime this week.
Okay, well, I've started filming, so.
Oh. Okay.
Well, we can edit that out, though, if you want to. That's all.
Morning!
I thought that was an interesting title for your outfit.
It was my over the top Christmas. I
She
feel
just
like
said
Christmas
barfed on
me.
her. Yeah, okay. So, hi, welcome to the Sun Dragon Sideshow. Or you're standing.
I'm standing. See, it's all. I don't know.
It's Christmassy, but there's
It's
teal,
Christmassy
so it's
and
like
there's,
not like.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's a new one. I'm not in love with it, but I'm wearing it. So,
Welcome to the Sun Dragon Sideshow.
the Dear Becky and Lizzie edition.
Why are we struggling with that? I don't know.
It's Thursday.
I
You thought it was Friday.
It was Friday all morning until I'm about to get out of bed and went, oops. Should have gotten up half an hour ago because it's Friday. I kind of give myself a little bit of extra time because we're not filming. Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in wet but hopefully kind of done raining Brevard, North Carolina.
I'm Liz. I'm the minion there.
I feel like this is turned towards me a little.
Yeah.
I'm not the quiet sister, so I don't need to turn towards me as much. Yeah, the river on the way in was at its banks, and there's a few spots where it's over.
Yeah.
So
we got lots of rain.
We got a decent amount of rain yesterday. Yeah, so, you know.
And all week, and, you know.
Yeah, well, we usually get a lot of rain. Honestly, I feel like we've probably flooded less than usual this year.
Yeah.
But, you know. All right, I think I might have set the camera up slightly crooked, but too late now. We're filming. Ta-da! I also did not change my sweater. Wearing this one yesterday. So again, this is my striped sweater, and I'm doing this around the thing you can't see that's recording.
It's a thing.
This is my striped sweater by Andrea Mowry in the Plymouth Hearthstone, which is a thin sport weight, but a merino alpaca blend. So I'd forgotten, like, the nice thing about wearing this yesterday, I was so warm. Like, this is a light and airy sweater, but I was so warm yesterday. It was great. I was still wearing a winter coat on top of this, but it was great. So, and before we go any further, because I'm busting this one out, I want to show where I'm at with this gnome. And yeah, it's not going to sit quite on top. Like, I might have overstuffed things, but this is the hydrangea hat. Right now, it more looks like a lei around a little bald spot, but I'm going to keep making flowers. I realized 2 days ago, this was in morning meditation with just half the body done. So
you're making progress.
I might actually stay on track. I have 2 more to do after this. So, yeah. We'll see.
I was looking at the weather forecast last night, going, knit faster. Knit so much faster.
Me?
Me.
You? Everybody?
Everybody.
Yeah. You sent your Christmas package yesterday.
Sent my Christmas package yesterday.
That's
so
cool.
Christmas is done.
I'll see if I can work on flowers while we're talking, but I bet it's going to be a disaster and a train wreck, and I'm going to have to stop. So, I'm sorry. Were you done talking?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are, like, okay, we have something Liz would like to address today, and then and just maybe we're gonna kvetch about, and then I have potential, like, we have filler. It's all good. We get to talk about what we want today. So, what did you want to talk about that you phrased in the form of a Dear
phrased
Becky and
it in a Dear Becky and Lizzie, but I'm not for today because that would require...
Because I've already spoiled the surprise.
Yeah.
What?
So I wanted to make a new sweater. Shocker. And
Yes.
I went looking for a pattern on Ravelry. And I was like, it's going to be bulky weight because I'm using 2 sports and a mohair. So push it up to that bulky weight yarn. So I put that in there.
Get it done faster.
How many? And instead of yards, I put meters because I was looking for more of a European.
Well, there's
pattern.
your problem.
No.
I'm kidding.
And it was like, what size needle do you want to use? Well,
so was there a reason why you wanted a more European style pattern?
I tend to like some of the European.
Okay, it's just you like how they're written, or you like the language, or the way
they
phrase
use
things.
I have a 7mm needle that I'm doing this on, a 10.75mm needle,
Okay,
and that was the other reason.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
Well, that was the other reason I typed in meterage, because a lot of American patterns don't use the 7mm. So in addition to meterage, I have a 7mm needle.
Okay, and keep going, but we're gonna have to back up and explain some of this. But go ahead. Yes.
So I put that in, and I'm surfing through the patterns, and I found this really pretty balloon sleeved raglan sweater.
Awesome.
It's Danish. And I was like, awesome. And so it was, hey, go to our website to buy the pattern. And I was like, okay. And they took Apple Pay, which was even better. Sorry.
I have comments for later, but I'm not going to repeat them on camera. You know what I'm thinking, but keep going.
Anyway, so then
I
get
have the whole story of this sweater now.
I get the pattern, and I'm like, it's bulky weight yarn on 7mm needles, and it says 7mm, 11 for the U.S. And I went, but I have 7mm needles, and they're not the same thing as 11.
Yeah,
and of course, there's the caveat of test your gauge and everything. But I was like,
for someone who's not as knowledgeable as us, that's confusing.
Yeah. I was like, an 11 is an 8mm needle. And
by knowledgeable, I just mean we've just done more stuff. It doesn't mean that we're like super smart or experts or anything. We've practiced more.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, so say that again. A US 11 that we sell in the store is
an 8mm needle.
Okay. And this pattern called a 7mm and 11, and that's confusing. Yeah. Because if someone didn't know that, they'll just go buy an 11 and then be like, what the heck? Why is this not working?
In needles, in U.S. sizes, primarily, there is 9, 10, 10 and a half, and 11.
I'm going to back up one more step for people who are coming to us as newbie knitters.
Okay.
But we'll get back to that.
Okay.
Just a side thing. U.S. needle sizes are numbered. And the bigger the number gets, the more the girth of the needle, the circumference of the needle grows. So like a US 0, and they're smaller than that. And a US 0 is pretty teeny tiny. This one right here, this is a US 0. I don't know if you can even see it on camera. And then, do we have anything big here? Like that is a
10.75.
10.75, which that sounds weird, but hang on. So the bigger, like really bulky yarn, you might be knitting on a 19 or something like that. And the numbers are not necessarily, just as they get bigger, the needles get bigger. They jump in millimeter sizes a lot different though, because some people will be like, I need a 5mm. What they actually mean is they need a US 5, which is not a 5mm. Like, there's a standard measurement to needles, regardless of what label we put on them, of what millimeter they are circumference-wise wide. Their girth, I like to call it at this point. Like, my girth is bigger than most of the rest of my family's. Anyway, so I digress. They're all asking for teeny tiny shirts for Christmas. So that's a side caveat. So like a 5mm is actually a US 8. But that doesn't mean that like say a 16 is twice as big. There isn't a 16. It's really weird. Once you hit a certain point, they start jumping by odd numbers. This is the area that Liz is getting into, is that they're regular numbers. It's like someone numbered the system and then realized they'd left out sizes that people use. The same thing happened with crochet hooks, except crochet hooks use the alphabet when they're, that's I'll hold on to that. But there's a whole bunch in the center from like 3s to 10s where it's fine. It tends to jump by either a 1/4 millimeter or a 1/2 millimeter between sizes. Everybody's fine. On the small end, I think they realized they jumped like the 0, 1, and 2. Then they realized, oh, wait, we need something in between. People actually use that, so they called it a 1.5, a 1.5. It's like, it's almost like when you're counting, you know, I'm going to count to 10, and then you go 9, 9.5, 9 3/4. It's like, they like, how do we fit in something in the middle? We'll give it a half. We'll give it a, so... Returning back to, you were just saying there's the 9, then there's a 10. In a popular usage, there's also a 10.5. So a 10 is a 6 millimeter. A 10.5 is a 6.5, because at this point they're jumping by 1/2 millimeter. When you're teeny tiny, they might only jump by 0.25. This is like, if you like numbers and nerdy stuff, this is a fun episode. So 10.5, but what we carry in the shop is a 10. 6 millimeter, 10.5, 6.5 millimeter, and then the 11,
8 millimeter.
8 millimeter. So at some point when people were coming up with needles that people use, they're like, well, there's the 10 will be the 6 millimeter, and the 11 will be the 8 millimeter, because no one uses anything in between those, and then we do.
I found that it's primarily Canadian and European patterns that use a 7 millimeter and a 7.5 millimeter needle. That Americans are kind of like, wait, we forgot to put those in.
And let me tell you, the difference between a 10.5, US 10.5, and a US 11 is substantial. It's it may not sound like it, but it's a 1.5 millimeters, which is can look pretty good. Like I might go over, and as you keep talking about this, I might go grab those. So if things are jumping by 1/2 millimeters, it's a 10.5 to an 11. It's like they already did a little bit on this end from the 10, and then there's still a millimeter and a half. So there's still like the 11, which we're talking about, and the 11.5 between 10.5 and 11. So you at home, if you don't know the numbers on things, the US sizes on things, you could probably imagine they exist. We don't carry them in the shop on a regular basis, but we can order them for people. I'm gonna go get the ones that we actually. I'll probably just get the double points because they're closest. But so what Liz just held up. What size is that?
This is a 10.75 U.S. needle, because since we used 10 and 10.5. and 11, we've got to squeeze sizes in there.
I don't know what people were thinking when they did this, but okay. So I'm sorry, I'm backtracking again. So this is the 10.5, which is a 6.5 millimeter, and this is the 11, which is an 8 millimeter. Again, a jump of 1.5 millimeters.
This is 7.
And I didn't get prims because we don't have, well, we might have these in some of the sizes, but that's a 7 millimeter. So again, when they're like, well, people are asking for a 7 millimeter. So they're like, we have a 10.5. Again, this is not proportional because a 1/2 and a 1/4, but each, it's just a labeling system because each one makes an equal jump from a 6 to a 6.5 millimeter to a 7 millimeter. So don't try to make the number system, the proportions of the number systems match. Just know if the number is bigger, the girth of the needle is bigger, and you need to look at the label to see what's going on or memorize it, right?
And also know that if you are doing a pattern that calls for a certain needle and you are not prepared to do a gauge swatch, which you should always be prepared to do a gauge swatch.
If you want it to come out the right size, you should do a gauge swatch.
And I've asked Rebecca in the course of, will 1/2 millimeter really change the size of my whatever? And you're talking about 1/2 millimeter on every stitch, which adds up.
Yeah, I say sometimes, or a lot of the time. Sometimes the needles, when it's so teeny tiny and close, it's hard to say. But that's the thing is like what we regularly carry in the shop. If you're not getting gauge on a 10.5, the next thing we regularly carry is an 11, which is a lot bigger. So if you need something in between these, we have to order you something. Because on top of that, so like, okay, again, this is super nerdy. 6.5 millimeters is the 10.5. The 10 3/4 is a 7 millimeter. There's still a whole millimeter to go before you hit the 11. So guess what?
There's another one in there.
There's a 10, and we've already used 10.5, 10.5, and 10 3/4, but there's still another half millimeter in there we could split. There's the 7.5 millimeter, and people were like, crap, we've used up all the regular fractions that we can put decimal points on with ease and have people still understand what we're talking about.
So thus was born the 10.875.
Well, and the easier way to maybe have your brain process that is the 10 7/8. As a fraction, it kind of like when you actually math out the fraction for decimal points.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to maybe write. It's 0.875. But it's, so the 10 and 7/8, because then they're like, what can we do that's between 3/4 and the next number? And they went to another, I think they were looking at a ruler or something and went, what's the next fraction-y thing we can do that's between 3/4 and the next whole number? And they're like, ooh, 7/8. I don't know why. Why'd they pick that instead of like 15/16? It's probably because it's less cumbersome. It's still cumbersome, right? So anyway, yeah. So half millimeter increments between a 10 or 10.5 and an 11 do exist, but you'll find most yarn shops probably don't stock those because they're, at least name-wise, kind of random.
I'm very...
Millimeter-wise, they're not random at all. Yes?
I was happy to find the mythological 10.75s and 10.875s. And every now and then I'm like, hey, Rebecca, throw those on your list, because I need...
And yeah, where our mythological label comes from is over on the it's because it's not as well known, right? It's like the unicorn. It's not as well known, and it comes more from how we talk about things on the crochet side, because
yes.
on the crochet side, in U.S. terminology, and the other thing is on needle terminology, double check if it's using UK numbers or US numbers, or just go by the millimeters, because that's how Liz discovered this 11 thing was not an 11. Because in the UK it's the opposite. They use numbers to label sizes, but it hurts my brain because I'm used to the US numbering, because as the number gets smaller, a number gets larger, the needle gets smaller. So
yes.
like their 12s are teeny tiny and their 1s are really big. And I'm just going to go off on tangents all over the place here. So after the 11, before I switch gears to I'll return to the mythological. Hang on. I want to stick with needles while we're on needles. So they're the half millimeters, you hit 11s and we're at 8 millimeters. Then the numbers jump. Like, they have the ability to stick. It's like someone at that point was like, we should leave room in case we need to stick needles in the middle here. So let's not go up by individual numbers anymore. Let's jump. And who knows why? Like, I'm sure there's a reason. If someone can track down the history of this, please share it with us. Because after the 11, the next side, if someone comes in and asks for an even numbered needle higher than an 11, like around that number, we'll just be like, that doesn't exist, or not in what we can order, because it goes 11s and then 13s and then 15s and then 17s and then 19s, and then it really jumps.
Well, and between an 11 and the 13, there's 1 millimeter.
That's yes.
Between a 13 and a 15, there's more than 1 millimeter.
Again,
it starts.
There isn't necessarily a logic to it, other than we're gonna hit whole or multiple of millimeters type things. We're not gonna jump by a random like 0.75 millimeters or something.
Well, between a 19 or a 1935
yes,
and 50.
but they're whole millimeters.
Yeah.
They're multiple millimeters, but we're not going to like jump by a random 1 3/4 millimeter or something. An 11, let's see how my brain's going to work. An 11, we already said, is an 8 millimeter, right? A 13 is a 9 millimeter. And then what's 15? It's 10 millimeters, actually, I think. So we're still jumping by millimeters. Okay. I just remembered that because it's like a 15 is a 10 millimeter and 8 is a 5 millimeter. It's not quite multiples of 2. It's close, but not quite. A 17, I don't know if that's I got to go look now. We've reached the maximum of what I can keep in my head. And this is falling on I just, couldn't keep up with that. Okay, hang on.
We're hanging.
A 17.
17
is a 12 millimeter. So from a 15 to a 17, it goes up by 2 millimeters.
2 millimeters.
I don't have 19s and double points, so hang
nope.
on. A 19 is a 15 millimeter.
19's a 15.
So that goes up by 3 millimeters.
3 millimeters.
And then 35 is our next one.
Yep.
And I don't know if I have that.
They'd be in the box.
Hang on. Should we just bring this over?
Yeah.
This is our box of needles that are too big to go on the wall. So to review. A 15 is a 10 millimeter. A 17 is a 12 millimeter, so it runs up at 2 millimeters. A 17 is a 15... No. 17 was the 12 millimeter.
Yes.
The 19 is a 15 millimeter, so it goes up by 3 millimeters. Then it's just like, let's just jumping. And then, again, I can't tell you why... But someone decided in the numerical ordering system, maybe it's because there's a bunch of millimeters in between that we could use if we need to, if we ever felt like we wanted to manufacture things, but they don't. A 35 is a 19 millimeter, so that went up by 4. Like, the increments that the millimeters are jumping up by is getting bigger, like 2, then 3, and then 4, but the numbers are just going weird. The next size after a 35, a US 35 needle, is a US 50, and that is 25 millimeters. So the jump between a US 35 and a US 50 is 6 millimeters. So it was like going up by 2 millimeters, and then 3, and then 4, and then 6! It's like, surprise!
And there are bigger than 50s
They're
out there.
70s.
They're 70s.
And I don't know how many millimeters they are. It's probably like 30 or 35 or something. People think our US 50s are huge. So,
yeah.
So, oh my gosh, right? Okay, so let's go to the nerdy side of crochet hooks, because that is why we jokingly have the mythological 7.
Yes.
So, and this is another thing that I was talking with Liz before we turned on the camera about sizes people list on patterns that are a little frustrating and annoying, because I've come across all of these crochet patterns, because I'm looking for all these, amigurumi or little, figurines, and half of the patterns I've come across, especially for the Viking gnomes, they were, no matter what thickness of yarn, sport weight, DK, worsted, they said use a 2 millimeter hook. That's teeny tiny. So the way that crochet hooks are labeled in the U.S. mostly is, instead of numbers, when we're talking about thicker ones, there's teeny tiny steel crochet hooks for thread crochet that do use numbers, and there's a system to those. I'm talking about ones for yarn so it's on the bigger end. Steel are teeny tiny. And maybe they want me to use a steel crochet hook for that, but that's I think ridiculous.
It is, especially given whatever weight, because a steel crochet hook,
we'll have a teeny tiny hook.
They are teeny tiny, and you're not going to be able to get worsted weight. Yeah,
exactly. Well, yeah. And so I think it's just a general copy paste label people put on things. It shows you that not all patterns are all that good. So, or have done all of the legwork that you might have wanted them to do. They could still be a good pattern, but they've missed a couple things. So regular yarn crochet hooks that we carry, most of them use letters. I was like, no, let me try that again. Letters. Like this is a B. And the further on in the alphabet you get, B, C, D, F, the further into the alphabet you get, the bigger the hook gets. And there's millimeters on these as well. And sometimes you'll see them with a letter / number, which is not the millimeter. Again, not to be confusing. And often that has to do with the correlating U.S. needle size. So an I/9.
Yeah, I-9, yeah.
Yeah, I have to remember these now. An I/9 is a 5.5 millimeter hook. It's the same girth in the workspace here as a US 9 needle. Doesn't mean it's 9 millimeters. It means it's got the same workspace circumference as a 9 knitting needle. So, and this also, so on one end, the B, oddly enough, the B is the smallest one that manufacturers make for easy distribution. Not an A, it's a B. And the B is 2.25 millimeters. And all these patterns I came across said, use a 2 millimeter hook. This is the smallest one we carry. And they don't even make the wood ones that I like to use this small because they'll probably break. I am using a D hook for most of my Christmas crocheting, and a D is a 3.25. It's a whole millimeter bigger than the B. So that's the first thing. But then the mythological language we like to joke and bandy about with is they did the same thing over on the crochet side that they did, whoever came up with this, they're probably different people, that they did on the knitting needle size, where they skipped some sizes of millimeters with the alphabet. So a G, and here's the other thing, is sometimes G's and H's, depending on the manufacturer, have different millimeterage, which is, that drives me absolutely crazy. So we try not to carry ones that will do that. And that's more like Susan Bates.
A G should be a 4 millimeter.
Yes.
And sometimes
in general
you will
knowledge.
find a G that's a 4.25 millimeter.
And it's like...
No. It's 4.
So an F is 3.75, I want to say. And then a G is a 4. And someone decided at about the 4 range that they could start going up. It wasn't even by whole millimeters, because then they threw in a half. So a G is a 4 millimeter, and H is a 5 millimeter. And then they went back to being normal and said an I should be a 5.5 then they started doing half millimeters again. So it was like...
I don't think a I is a 5.5. I think it's 5 millimeters.
This coming from the crocheter.
Never mind. My brain.
There's too many numbers. There's absolutely too many numbers. But so the G is a 4 millimeter and an H is a 5 millimeter, because the H is the one that all the worsted weights will say to use, like the Encore.
Yeah.
That's why I gave you blank stare for a second.
It's okay.
You're also trying to cast on and do things.
No.
I gave up on my crocheting at this point.
My brain just kept going, no, it's not 5.5. Yeah, it is.
It is.
It is.
So from a G to an H, it jumped a whole millimeter. And the 4.5 millimeter, that's the sweet spot. Like from 4 to maybe 6 millimeters is the sweet spot where number 4 worsted weight yarn to a chunky, to a DK, like a lot of knitting gets done and crochet gets done in that sweet spot. Those middle range where it's not too tiny and it's not too big. And somehow they skipped the 4.5 millimeter. Somehow.
Oops.
That's kind of big. It's a US 7 needle, which is something you might use for DK or worsted weight yarn. It's something you might use a lot. So they skipped that one, and at some point people rebelled enough. I'm making up stories. I have no idea the actual history, but what I imagine is enough people went, I need the one in the middle. What are you doing to me? That could be why some yarn companies fudged or crochet hook companies fudged things and started putting out the 4.25 or something to say, like, well, let's just give you something that's kind of like bridges the gap. So at this point, most crochet hook companies that make that 4.5, it's just called a 7. And for crocheters who don't know about the knitting world, they'll be like, that's weird. It's not 7 millimeters. It's not even like if you double 4.5, you get like, it's like, why? And it's because, here's the grand reveal. It's because it's the same girth as a US 7, what we label a US 7 in knitting needles. So we call it the mythological 7 because it doesn't exist in the alphabetic labeling of crochet hooks. So long story long, it's not so funny anymore.
A 17.
Yeah, there's a couple others that will probably, again, fit the knitting needle side of things because they don't have they didn't want to go with, it's not as easy to go with like a G.5. Like that would just be confusing.
Yeah.
Or like some companies just manufacture a different size G, which I think is silly. And we've got some Clover ones over there that have an M/N or an N/P. Like the sizes are weird. And it's frustrating.
I think they're trying to consolidate some of their sizes instead of.
They might be. And then there's some that when we get up into the big side of crochet hooks, what is a 17 in some crochet hooks won't be in others, and it gets weird. But the mythological 7, the size 7 crochet hook, which is weird because most other crochet hooks have a letter, is a 4.5 millimeter. That can take up some space in your brain and shove some other information out, but I think it's good to have. So I think we've pretty extensively covered some of that fun. This came up as an issue for Liz this week. So, but it can make testing your gauge and finding your gauge and like making it work in that bigger but not super huge range that you are looking to knit in.
Yeah.
It can make that challenging. Because I have had customers who their gauge was too small on a 10.5, and it's going to be massive on an 11. And what do? It's one of those, if you can wait, we can order you a needle. And then if that one doesn't work, then you have a random extra needle that I don't know when you're going to use it. So it's challenging.
And we've had several people come in and it's like, okay, I need a 7 millimeter needle for this pattern. It's like, you can either go up or down.
You can go down, or we can order you something. Yeah. And most people want instant gratification, so that's a struggle. But how's that going for you?
I have 70 stitches on my needle.
Nice.
I can actually.
I made one leaf. I have to put. Doing 10 single crochets into a magic loop is hard to keep the magic loop shut.
What?
I will say that's how this. So I've had to like secure these ends in before I attach them, or let this become a big open hole, because that's how this works. Is you're making 5 petals, and you're using 10 stitches to do it. And I get to do triples for these cute. I might talk more about this on Tuesday if I can get this finished. These cute little hydrangeas. It's like I've been single crocheting my brain to death, and then I get to do triples. Woo! Anyway, we should go get ready. Probably I was like, maybe we could talk about last minute Christmas gifts and things like that. I think y'all either can figure it out or can ask us to talk about that next week. But we can't ship anything to you next week. But at that point, I mean, we're reaching the point.
We will send packages.
Oh, yeah.
As they come in.
As fast as we can. And then when it gets into the post office's hands, there are no guarantees. So, but at this point, yeah, ordering from us, you're hitting the we hope it gets to you in time mark, because everything gets crazy at this time. And like earlier this week, I was thinking about trying to order more last minute stuff for the shop, and I was realizing it's probably already too late. So we have what we have, and if we run out of things, I guess it's a good problem to have. I don't know. But we had some orders come in last night that we're going to try to pack up and have Carol take to the post office today. Like, we're trying to do turnaround as quickly as we can, so it might get to y'all before Christmas, or as soon as possible at this point, because like we have one more week.
And when we come back from vacation, there's always a lot of packages to do.
There's always.
And I'm not coming in this year like I did last year and the year
No,
before.
I think you should rest.
Yeah.
So we will probably have a sale over break, and we'll talk about that next week, like in the online shop. Like, we won't be around to troubleshoot. You can always email and say, huh? And if it's a that involves something that's only available in the store, it's not not online, only in the physical shop, that's not gonna, if you can't find it online, you could email me and I'll get back to you as I can when I'm on vacation with my family. And if I say that's not in the online shop, that means it doesn't qualify for the discount. So anyway, more about that next week. But we should go get out what we can for people who just ordered. And a lot of the people who ordered got things that are on sale. Yay! Save money. It's that you could wait for the sale over break. That might be more than the product of the week sale. But what you want might not be in stock anymore. That's a gamble. That's a risk. You have to weigh the saving money versus will it still be there. And I am going to do my best, but I really can't make too many promises. I'm going to do my best to get more of our fun things into the online shop, like locally hand-dyed yarn that came in from Fiber Fairy. I have dreams of that. We'll see. Really big knit-out boxes from Likey that can hold like the big skeins of Ito. I want to see if I can get those into the online shop, but we'll see. Our staples, where there are like 50 colors of yarn, that is super challenging to get into the online shop. It is probably not going to happen before break. So Cascade 220 Superwash, things like that. I would say don't plan on those being in the online shop. Call us beforehand if you need any of that. And it's not part of the product of the week sale, So we got new colors of Alba. I can probably get those into the online shop before we go. If you like Alba, check and see if we got restocked on any colors. And if you want to, take your chances and wait until break, because that is in the online shop and you could get that over break. But know that anything I'm going to be a broken record on some of these things, so hopefully it sinks in before break for everybody. Anything ordered between Christmas and New Year's will be shipped out as soon as we can upon our return the first week of January. It means it might be the second week of January, but we'll do our best. You know that we're pretty good with turnaround times. But we also want to look to our physical and emotional well-being. So, all right.
Tuesday morning there will be lots to print off and then go hunt down. And
we will collect stuff, and we will be in touch with people if the inventory has glitched at all, which it always does every time. Hopefully just a little, just a few times. But we'll make sure that yours is filled before people can buy it out with from under you unintentionally. We'll pull it before the doors open, or as the doors open when we come back, and then we'll pack them up as soon as I say we. She packs. I do the computer end, and then they get out. So.
I got my email for the click and ship for my mom's box, and I was like, that looks like spam. It says click and ship, but it looks like it looks
like what?
It's spam. It just
spam.
It looked funny.
I heard that looks like
It looked funny in my email, and I was like,
no wonder we have people contact us and say, what's the shipping number? I didn't get it, because it looks like spam, because it comes from the USPS and looks like it's a phishing
it went to my Gmail box. So I was like, well, Gmail doesn't generally do spam, which is weird. And then I opened it and I was like,
I sent it to your Sun Dragon.
Yeah, it's the box to my mom. Okay. And
anyway, we have records of shipping numbers if you need them, if it gets sent to spam or something like that. So, we're going to go. Have a good weekend. We have Sit and Stitch tomorrow night from 7 to 9 p.m. On Zoom. Get in with the shop phone number.
828-877-3550.
Next week is our last week of Sit and Stitch until the new year. So, because we won't be holding virtual Sit and Stitch. I know we could, but we're going to try to rest. That can happen anywhere. I understand that, but we'll be on vacation, so we won't be having it. So next week is our last Tuesday, Friday, and then we take off a Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday. And we hope everybody survives. But we love y'all. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. That is no charge to you, in a way to help other people on YouTube to see us, because YouTube goes, oh, people like this. Okay. Give us a thumbs up, all that kind of stuff. If you would like to monetarily contribute to the work we do here, you can go to patreon.com/sundragon and sign up for a monthly contribution. I think we have as little as $3 a month. Every little bit helps. So, anything, but anyway, y'all, even just sending us a comment saying Merry Christmas or we love you guys. We've gotten a lot of those lately and we appreciate it.
And when we get to 1,500, we're doing a sale.
We're doing 1,500 subscribers. It's going to take us a little while because we're only at 1330.
Yeah.
But we'll have another sale only for YouTube people. So, anyway, we'll see you. Have a good weekend.